And we got a long road ahead of us. I don't think you can actually clean up Washington, D.C. I don't think you can fix it. It's already fixed. President Trump's going to have to invite all of his contractor buddies. They're going to have to put a fence around D.C. 3 layers deep. You're going to have to pamphlet the city. Anybody that wants out, we got metal detectors, and you're going to get strip searched. You're not getting out with any of the evidence. Anybody that wants to stay, you're an enemy combatant. We're going to flood the city and wash it out. We're going to divert the Potomac. We're going to watch where the water comes out of those slimy holes. I don't care if they're 200 miles away. And then, after we've flushed it clean about 3 times, because we're not taking any chances with any of our guys, then we're going in, we're going door to door, and we're going to clean that place out, and we're not going to occupy it again. We're just going to leave it fenced up as a spectacle to the world of the insanity of these groups that have tried to manipulate us. And we're going back to right thinking, godly thinking, sound thinking.
I'm a very stable genius.
Humans, not these monsters that have taken over our country and our way of life. I hope all of your listeners decide to be counted. I hope that they'll find a way to close ranks, recognize each other in the spirit of that kid. We all are. We all choose to remember and be standing on the side of a street as our father, president, figure, friend, fellow American rolled by.
Sí, ¿cómo?
Countries in Central America have ramped up their border controls as thousands of migrants from Honduras and Guatemala are heading to the US for a new life. The region is reeling from a growing hunger crisis after hurricanes hit, as well as violence and lockdown measures that disrupted the job markets. On Friday, the first migrant caravan of the year departed Honduras. Small skirmishes broke out between Honduran security forces and migrants at the border with Guatemala as night fell. But groups of migrants continue to trickle past the border, even as Guatemalan military detained hundreds of migrants, including many families with young children. Guatemalan officials estimate around 6,500 people to be heading north to the US. Dora Sanchez is one of them.
We just want a chance to work. We are defeated. We have nothing. We are left on the streets. We lost everything. Here, most of us have nothing, not even a blanket to tuck into.
Guatemala declared emergency powers in 7 border provinces on Thursday, citing pandemic concerns. Mexico also deployed soldiers and riot police to its border with Guatemala on Friday. The exodus comes less than a week before the inauguration of US President-elect Joe Biden, who has promised a more humane approach to migration.
Lay hands. You all right, boss? Yeah. Come on, follow me. We'll keep moving. Watch out. Let's go. Watch your body. Watch your body.
Which no Democrat, nobody in the media ever wants to play. These are his words that day that they said led and inspired the insurrection. Take a listen.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Peacefully, patriotically, make your voices heard. All right, let's look at that as their standard to impeach. Let's compare it to what Chucky Schumer said just a couple of months ago in front of the U.S. Supreme Court building. Let's take a look at Chuck kind of threatening Supreme Court justices. Take a look.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
You will pay the price. You won't know what hit you. Schumer now face impeachment? Should we set a date? And by their standards, Democrat may also want to consider impeaching squad member Congresswoman Presley. This summer, remember violent riots ripping through nearly every major city in the country. She goes on propaganda, socialist MSDNC, calling for unrest in the streets as long as there is unrest in our lives. Wow, sounds like an impeachable statement. Listen.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives. And unfortunately, there's plenty to go around.
I have no retort to that, Congresswoman. That's certainly accurate.
Pretty clear incitement of violence, according to the Democrats' own standards. And that's not all. 2018, fellow squad member, well, speaker in reality, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called on Americans to occupy airports and federal law enforcement offices all across America. She going to be impeached? Take a look.
We need to occupy every airport. We need to occupy every border. We need to occupy every ICE office.
In other words, Ocasio-Cortez was encouraging her radical supporters to breach government buildings. Then, of course, you got Eric Swalwell. Now, before getting exposed over his years-long relationship with a Chinese spy, Swalwell threatening gun owners with nuclear weapons on Twitter. Make no mistake, this constant stream of violent rhetoric from Democrats over the past 4 years has been disgraceful. Take a look.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
Would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
You got to be ready to take a punch. You got to be ready to throw a punch.
You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Everyone should take note of that on both levels. That this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
Get up in the face of some Congress people.
With this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
The lying president said that I had threatened all of his constituents. I did not threaten his constituents, his supporters. I do that all the time.
It does you any good running away from Donald Trump. I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
One more important point. During this summer's violent riots, soon-to-be VP Kamala Harris promoted that bail fund in Minneapolis for actual rioters on Twitter. Now the fund refuses to tell us who they bailed out of jail. I wonder why. And Senator Harris was accusing Kavanaugh of rape in the U.S. Senate. Now, these protesters breached and occupied the Senate Hart building. Well, will Senator Harris be held accountable for that? Will any of these Democrats get impeached? Of course not. Rules don't apply to them. Never have, never will. And by the way, yesterday's snap impeachment was not just detrimental because of the glaring double standard and breathtaking hypocrisy, but it is another rush to judgment. They do it all the time. What happened on Capitol Hill the 6th, we said it, can never happen, ever. And the very heart of our Capitol was attacked. Police were seriously injured. People died. People died over the summer, too. 2,000 cops were injured. And it revealed what is a massive vulnerability. All of our enemies, Russia, Iran, China, they were all watching. They see our vulnerability. Terrorists see it. We need the equivalent of a 9/11 commission report to investigate what happened. Fake news CNN, their investigators are now pursuing signs that the Capitol breach, as we told you, was pre-planned. That goes against everything they've been telling us since January 6th. Investigators reportedly believe participants at the rally, they all left early to retrieve items to go forward with their pre-planned assault. Fox News has confirmed this left-wing activist has been arrested and charged with crimes related to the Capitol breach. He was filmed inside the Capitol January 6th and initially claimed he's just there to document the chaos. As it turns out, the federal government believes he was an active participant in the riot. I hear some other video to follow. We'll watch. In fact, according to authorities, he encouraged his fellow rioters to light the building ablaze. And tonight, there are still so many questions about what went wrong. The FBI claims that it was monitoring online activity and from certain individuals planning a Capitol breach, complete with floor plans of the Capitol. And meanwhile, a report even in the Washington Post detailing how the outgoing Capitol Police Chief requested the National Guard assistance in the lead up to January 6th on 6 separate occasions, denied help each and every time. So now we have evidence that, in fact, it was not a spontaneous attack. It was planned. And all the signs were ignored. That's why you don't have a snap impeachment. Liz Cheney, you still stand by your vote? Mitch McConnell, you going to vote with Republicans? Are you watching this unfold? Mitch, why didn't you and Nancy Pelosi, you're in charge of the Sergeant at Arms in your respective branches of Congress, why didn't you pay more attention to what law enforcement was begging for? Now, any Republican senator that participates in this insane post-presidency impeachment charade would not be qualified for office. It's that simple. Make no mistake. This can't happen over the summer. This can't happen ever again to our Capitol. We deserve answers, and we need to hold everybody accountable for any violence with whatever political motivation they had. The mob, the media, the Democrats rush to judgment, and they allow their Trump rage to guide their every action. And now this country has been let down again by the mob and the media and by their elected officials.
Feel free to express yourself in whatever format, manifestation feels like. We do intend to do the full retro, as I said in my note. It is going to take some time. And then the other thing, just to close out a little bit, we are focused on one account right now, but this is going to be much bigger than just one account, and it's going to go on for much longer than just this day, this week, the next few weeks. It's going to go on beyond the inauguration. We have to expect that. We have to be ready for that. So the focus is certainly on this account and how it ties to real-world violence, but also we need to think much longer term around how these dynamics play out over time. I don't believe this is going away anytime soon. And the moves that we're making today around QAnon, for instance, is one such example of a much broader approach that we should be looking at and go deeper on. So the team has a lot of work and a lot of focus on this particular issue. We also need to give them the space
There you have it. Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, recorded by one of his own employees, an insider whistleblower at Twitter, recorded saying this is going to be much bigger than just one account, revealing some censorship. You could see our motto at Veritas, our organization protected by an army of citizen patriots. We've had over a dozen people reach out to us this week with video, evidence inside Twitter. Stay tuned. They may be private companies, but they have more power than all three branches of government. Veritas tips.
Good evening, everybody. We may soon have new and explosive insight into what is the greatest political scandal in American history. The radical Dems and the deep state's efforts to overthrow President Trump. Hundreds of pages of depositions, transcripts, and FBI evaluations expected to soon be released to the public on Obamagate. The White House document release will follow on the reporting of Just the News editor-in-chief John Solomon, who here last night reported on the upcoming release. We'll be talking with John Solomon about what we can expect and what he knows here next. The documents to be released, declassified by President Trump. And among the bombshell revelations, an admission by former MI6 agent Christopher Steele, the author of the fraudulent Trump dossier, that he leaked information to the U.S. media from his dirty Trump dossier in an effort to distract from Hillary Clinton's ongoing email scandal and the reopening of the FBI investigation into that scandal. That admission, made in the fall of 2017, the documents promise to further expose the radical left and the deep state's plot, hatched by none other than Hillary Clinton, then candidate Donald Trump's opponent, to overthrow the Trump presidency later on. A plot that has been underway since the summer of 2016. In fact, on June 13th, 2016, President Obama's former campaign manager laid it all out for everyone to see. David Plouffe tweeted this, quote, "It is not enough to simply beat Trump. He must be destroyed thoroughly. His kind must not rise again." That tweet coming just weeks before James Comey initially closed the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton's email server scandal. Just before. And it was that same summer in which the Clinton campaign constructed the plot to distract from her scandal by ginning up the false Russia collusion fraud against then-candidate Trump. And Plouffe's tweet also, curiously preceded by only a month and a half, the FBI's first effort to frame General Michael Flynn. President Trump's declassification order threatens to expose any and all members of the deep state swamp, the radical Dems who have feverishly worked to undermine, to overthrow his presidency, and to block his agenda. Today, one of the gatekeepers of the swamp, none other than Senator Lindsey Graham, undercut the president once again. Graham's Senate Judiciary Committee released the transcripts of 11 interviews that Graham had kept hidden and unavailable from officials involved in investigating the origins of Obamagate. They include interviews from the likes of former DOJ officials Bruce Orr, Dana Boente. All of the interviews released were conducted before the November 3rd election, and Senator Graham sat on every single one of them. Senator Graham also continues, to disappoint the American people, to say the least, to deny their right to know. And he had this brazen remark about his document dump today. "We have released as much material as possible, but some classified material has still been withheld." This, ladies and gentlemen, is one sorry excuse for a senator. Joining us tonight is John Solomon, editor-in-chief of Just the News, best-selling author, great American. And John, let's start with this document dump from Senator Graham, since it is the most immediate development. 11 interviews that he sat on This man
Go
is
back to March of last year
and
March
appalling.
of last year. Yeah, it's remarkable. I think Senator Graham was just simply trying to crash President Trump's last declassification party. There's some interesting stuff in there, things that would have been nice to know before the election. I'll give you a good example. Steve Laycock, the executive assistant director of the FBI, says that everybody knew inside the FBI and the State Department that Christopher Steele was so bad that he actually thought the U.S. government had a consulate in Miami when none was existed. This is a guy we're trusting to give us intelligence, and he doesn't even know the Russians can't be doing what he claims because there is no consulate in Miami. Laycock testifies to the committee. Everybody was talking about it. We knew about that. And yet, while they knew he was that bad off, that Christopher Steele was that bad off, they were representing to the FISA court that he was a solid guy, no derogatory information. Those sort of revelations would have been nice last summer, last fall, not 4 days or 5 days before Joe Biden takes office.
There are so many revelations that we have received, including the fact that Hillary Clinton authored the plot to distract from her own scandal, the email scandal, and to have official Washington, our government, participate in a plot to block the candidacy of Donald Trump and to overthrow his presidency. What is stunning to me, John, is with that knowledge, and it's separate from this, in part, it's separate from this release of documents we're expecting from the White House. We know this. And the radical Dems, Nancy Pelosi, proceed with this impeachment fraud once again against the president. The national left-wing media is so intertwined, so complicit with the Democratic Party and the deep state that they're not even acknowledging. The American people, many of the, if not most Americans, don't realize the hoax that's been perpetrated on them. And that is this plot hatched by Hillary Clinton and the Dems to destroy Donald Trump. David Plouffe wasn't kidding when he said what he did.
No, he wasn't kidding. The great thing about David Plouffe, he tells you exactly what he's going to do. And the Republicans have been asleep at the switch for 4 years as he's told the American public what he planned to do. The reason why the media, the mainstream media, is silent is that they were primary co-conspirators in the creation, dissemination, and sustaining of a false narrative for 2 and 3 years. And to this day, by not acknowledging their failures, by not covering the reversal of the story with the same aggressiveness that they first put it on the front pages, they have disturbed the American public. And that's why in the Gallup poll that came out right after Christmas, American news media are held in the lowest esteem in American history. And 30% of Americans, a third of America, don't believe a single word that comes from the news media. They have made their own bed, just like Twitter and Facebook, who've lost $50 billion of video value in the last week. The American people are beginning to revolt against these institutions.
A person of influence in the United States government. Anna, break this all down for us. This is huge news. What are the implications for Obama, Hillary, Brennan? What did you hear on those audio recordings?
First of all, thank you, Gary, for having me on. I want to say this is the most explosive information that Americans and the entire world will ever hear. I have to say these men are heroes. Alan, Charles, Nick, they are American heroes. It's an honor to even be a part of this. I was not expecting this at all. I was attending American Priority Conference in Florida where Trump Doral, and they were the last ones to speak. Save the best for last, because shockingly, they gave this presentation, dropped this Benghazi bombshell on all of our heads, and we're all wondering what in the world just happened. I came up to honor these wonderful men. They're Christian men. They're spirit-filled men. As a Christian, I wanted to honor them as American patriots and heroes. And they basically said, "Hey, we need someone to help release this right now. Would you help us?" And so I jumped on the bandwagon. We got to my room right away, put the stuff out there. They showed me a lot of the documents. I heard the audios. I heard even more audios this morning. Gary, it is explosive. explosive the audios that they have. I can't mention some of the names, but I'll tell you the biggest names in intelligence, the biggest names in the Obama administration, Brennan, Clinton. There's so much. It ties into Joe Biden. There is so much here. What this administration has done is absolute treason. Now, we all know, and not all of us actually in America are aware, that something was wrong with Benghazi. Okay, there were red flags there, and there was big red flags with SEAL Team 6 who took out Osama bin Laden. It was interesting timing right before Obama's re-election, how this bin Laden raid happened. But turns out that all of these stories, they're all linked together. This is the best kept secret in this country until now. It is time to come forward, and I'm so blessed that this man, Allen, who has an extensive history in the Middle East, over 20 years working intelligence in the Middle East, who, regrets some of the things that he has done, but has come forward as a Christian saying it's time to release this information. He has thousands of files, thousands of documents that are in the hands of these whistleblowers. So it's a team effort, and a lot of media sources have this information. As you have said, a congressperson has received this disc last night. I was there. It happened right in front of me. We're about to see some explosive things surface. I'll tell you a little quick preview of what it's about. Obviously, you have Nick No, who is a Benghazi whistleblower who reached out to Charles Woods after his son died in Benghazi. He was a sniper up on the roof in Benghazi. His father, Charles Woods, never knew what happened to Tyrone Woods. He was lied to by the Obama administration, telling them that they have done everything that they could to protect those men, which was a bold-faced lie. They did not. And Charles Woods explains it in his presentation, which is up on my YouTube if you want to see the entire presentation. He explained what Obama wrote him a 3-sentence letter, Gary, a 3-sentence letter completely lying to him. And what happened was, after Charles went on different interviews and it went viral, there were intelligence people that reached out to Charles and said, that is not what happened. You were lied to. This is what happened. Benghazi, Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, they were sending weapons, Stinger missiles from Libya to Syria, and it was going through Benghazi. And they allowed all those men to be taken out because of what they knew. And he also found out, in addition to that, which is insane, he found out more information about the SEAL Team 6 with Osama bin Laden, which is what is all of this is coming out. It's all connected together.
So from what I've been able to gather so far, listening to the whistleblower himself, looking over the different articles that have already been published, in conversations with people, with yourself, other sources, what I'm able to gather here is that the entire operation to take out Osama bin Laden was orchestrated with Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton goes out, she sends out SEAL Team 6. They don't tell Obama. They say, Obama, you're going to have to deal with this, because they've been hiding Osama bin Laden in Iran. And apparently, even CBS News punted the story back. And Iran knew about it. And Iran knew about it. They were hiding him there. Back in 2010, CBS News punted a story because they thought it would be harmful to Barack Obama. So it was actually known, but they dropped the ball. So what ends up happening is you have the SEAL Team 6 goes in, Hillary orders the hit, and then Iran sends Osama bin Laden down to that hideout where he was supposedly hiding, but then they switch him out last minute. Yes. SEAL Team 6 goes in there, and they kill the decoy, and now they go up in the air, they finish their mission, but now they all know that they didn't kill Osama bin Laden, but America, everyone's celebrating in front of the White House that very moment. So now you've got a serious problem on your hands, and Iran says, guess what? We're going to tell the world that you lied to your people unless you send us the money. Is that basically what we're talking about in a nutshell here?
In a nutshell, that's exactly what happened. And the implications of this, the administration in cohorts with Iran, protecting bin Laden. And I have to say, I just heard the audio clip this morning of a congressman. He will be named. I won't name his name right now. Who is not a good guy, who is on these audio tapes with Allen talking about, well, let's hold off killing Osama bin Laden until the time is right so we can use him as a trophy. The word trophy wasn't used.
You heard a congressman say that.
Yes, I did. I heard it. I don't have the file. They have it. It's being released. It's given to the congressman last night. Media has it as well. They're hopefully soon they'll release it. But I heard this. I heard that on the audio that they said, hold Osama until we're ready. And then what happened was Iran, last second, like you were saying, last minute, decided to take Osama out. And so there was a decoy, a double, whatever it was. When the SEAL Team 6 team came in to kill Osama, they had direct orders not to take the body back home. You saw with Saddam Hussein, it was all over the place. His pictures were everywhere. They took the body, they did a DNA test, confirmed it was Saddam Hussein. But with bin Laden, it never happened. It never happened. They told them to basically throw his body parts over the mountains, which in the news media, they said they dropped his body in the water, which by the way is haram, which Allen explains, having lived in the Middle East over 20 years. He said that's haram. When you bury a Muslim, you bury them in the ground and their head faces Mecca. There is no way that they would ever, as a Muslim, and John Brennan being director of the CIA would know that because he's Muslim himself, he would know not to ask them to drop it off over the mountains. So the Navy, the SEAL Team 6 knew what was going on, and I'm sure they knew they were in big trouble, and obviously they were all slaughtered and all left to die by this not this administration, by Obama administration. And what happened, like you said, Iran on audio tapes, it's going to come out, of making deals with the Obama administration and Joe Biden's administration, saying, if you do not send us $152 billion, we will release this information and you will not get reelected. So what did Obama do?
You mentioned that money, but I also heard Perot say there was $2 billion that was also earmarked. So I don't mean to interrupt you, but please continue.
No, that's exactly what I was going to get to. Exactly. So there was $2 billion in cash that was sent from America to Iran. That $2 billion on audio is recorded. I haven't heard it, but I know we have it. Is that the administration said that $2 billion cash is going to go back to the Americans, back to the politicians, in order to keep their mouth shut. So they sent, $150 billion, but $2 billion in cash, so it can come back and take care of the people who are keeping this massive treasonous secret.
So $2 billion gets redirected. Of that, $153 billion gets redirected back to the United States. I can only assume that some of the people on that phone call were recipients of that dirty money, perhaps that congressman, perhaps John Brennan, Hillary Clinton. What are your thoughts?
That's right. And actually, there's also a lot of documents that points Clinton Foundation with terrorism in the Middle East, and also McCain's foundation also implicated. This is explosive. And once the congressman is going to go through this evidence, there's a plethora of it. Once he realizes that this is legitimate, that this intel is coming from a source who is credible. Not only that, Gary, but there are other operatives who have confirmed this information, specifically to Charles Woods, which I'm sure the congressman will speak to as well. So the implications of this is treason. Hang them.
Country love of her people from mainland China, then to Hong Kong, to the lab, the WHO lab, reference lab there, who's a witness of fact of what happened here, particularly with the Beijing CDC, but gave the West a warning. It's the reason she defected, left her husband, her family, her parents, her friends, her career, to come to the West to warn them about what Mike Pompeo just told us. So Dr. Lee Minyan, you've seen what's coming out right now, and I realize you even have a tougher interpretation of this. Just tell us where we stand right now from what you know are facts and what's coming out in the West as the accusations against the Chinese Communist Party, and particularly the Batwoman in Wuhan?
Morning, sir. Thank you. So first, I want to tell people this statement is a very great process towards the truth of COVID-19, but it's still not enough because we don't have much time. And now we know from the statement that Wuhan Institute of Virology under CCP control is the place that the COVID-19 virus come from. And that is one of the many institutes which is engaged into this kind of virus or novel pathogen works encouraged by CCP for years. And also they have their own data publication show their capacity. And later the statement shows that there is gain of function experiment in WIV conducted mainly by Xi Jinping, Batwoman, and also other experts involved Western scientists. And the last thing is very important, that the military-civil fusion work between WIV and other military labs are confirmed. That means this is a potential bioweapon program working there. And later you see what happened. I think you can make the judgment whether this is bioweapon or bio-war or not.
Just as long as they have guards with guns. Democrats' impeachment of President Trump today has now set the standard that they should be removed for their support of violence against the American people.
Newly elected Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene on the House floor this week saying the Democrats are the guilty ones here. And Congresswoman Greene joins us this morning. Congresswoman, good morning. Glad to have you here today. You spent the last few days calling for the impeachment of President-elect Biden, even though he's not president yet. The basis for that impeachment is what?
Well, the reason why I'm calling for the impeachment of President-elect Joe Biden is he's guilty of abuse of power when he served as Vice President of the United States. He admitted on video that he was willing to withhold $100 billion in foreign aid just to get his way to help his son Hunter Biden with Burisma and Ukrainian energy companies. This is a pattern of abuse that we're seeing also in the Hunter Biden laptop investigation. There needs to be more information coming out on that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what President Trump releases when he declassifies more information over the next few days.
So the purpose of this, you know that you're not going to get impeachment on Joe Biden. What's the purpose of this? Is it to stir the pot, to try to keep this going, that you as a Republican and are unhappy with the results of the election? Is that what you're trying to say here in reality?
Absolutely not, Jeff. The whole reason why I ran for Congress is because I got fed up and really tired of the corruption that we see constantly out of Washington. You know, the American people work hard every single day, paying their taxes, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and then we just get completely thrown under the bus constantly. Corruption should not exist. I don't care what name of the party is on it or in front of it. And that's what I intend to do as a lawmaker, serving Georgia's 14th district in Washington and Congress. We need to hold people accountable. And that means at every single level. Joe Biden, his family is involved in giant scams with energy companies across the world.
Let me move
and that's
on
a
with you on
dangerous
this
place
subject,
to be
then.
for the President of the United States.
Fuck that shit. Hey guys, I have a knife. Let me through. I got a knife. I got a knife.
These guys ain't the ones that. Fuck the blue!
He wants you to go home. I'm recording, and there's so many people. It's just they're gonna push their way up here. Bro, I see people out there get. When the whole country hates you. I want you to go home. We hate you. Go. Let's go. Get this shit. There's a gun! There's a gun! There's a gun! Hey, he's got a gun! He's got a gun! They got... Oh! Oh!
We did it! You were right, we did it!
Dude, I was trying to tell you. I couldn't say much.
You were right!
You just have to watch my chat. Is this not going to be the best film you've ever made in your life? But it's all fake. My face is not on Instagram. I learned that shit already. I'm gonna wear a Trump hat. I bought one today. I was wearing a Trump hat at the fucking last Trump rally during the daytime, because I was like, nah, that shit ain't happening, bro. Yeah, I was. Oh yeah, I was just a journalist, but I use that all the time. Yeah, I'm just a journalist. I'm here recording. I got my camera on my shoulder. Literally have my big ass camera on my shoulder right here.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not malicious.
Americans instinctively know there was something wrong with this election.
I rise today to object to a number of states that did not follow the constitutional requirement for selecting electors.
This is completely indefensible. You cannot change the rules of an election while it is underway and expect the American people to trust it.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. Remember this, nothing worth doing ever came easy. Because in America, we don't worship government, we worship God. In God we trust.
Country. What it does is send a very clear message. Anyone who disagrees with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi is a Nazi or a white supremacist or just white, which is the same thing. They're not Americans. They don't have human rights. They have no right to speak or to fly or to use banks or to hold jobs. Where's this going? Thinking like that. It's poison. We'll tell you where it's going. It's going wherever corporate America wants it to go because they're in charge, effectively. Corporations are fully aligned. This has never happened in our country. They are fully aligned with a political party. How much distance between the Biden campaign and Google, the most powerful company in the world? Right around none. So publicly held multinationals like Facebook and Twitter and Google can do whatever they want, and what they want to do is become partisan actors. They've silenced Donald Trump. Okay, they will silence you if you dare dissent. Make no mistake. Republicans should have seen this coming. It's not like it was a mystery. Democrats never hid their intent. Here's Kamala Harris saying it out loud from a debate stage.
Senator Warren, I just want to say that I was surprised to hear that you did not agree with me that on this subject of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies, when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account, that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me.
So, look, I don't just want to push Donald Trump off Twitter. I want to push him out of the White House. That's our job.
Join me in saying that his Twitter account should be shut down.
Anyone who says the other side must be forced to stop talking is a threat to our freedoms. Period. If you don't like what someone says, explain why and win people over voluntarily. That's what the democratic system is at its core. Anyone who says, I will use the power of the state, of Google, to make the other side shut up, again, is a threat to your freedom. By the way, this is also illegal, baldly illegal. The coordination between these companies violates the most basic tenet of antitrust law. When monopolies conspire to suppress competition and hurt consumers, it's not even a close call. They are breaking the law, period. And it doesn't matter if no one in Washington is brave enough to say that out loud. It doesn't make it less true. And that's exactly what they're doing, and the evidence mounts.
I think I figured out what's going on. So, and we have to stop it. We have to stop it. And the only way is to talk about it, and we need boots on the ground, but not with guns. They need to have cameras, because this is what I believe is going to happen. They are going to assassinate Joe Biden at the inauguration. Kamala Harris will have already been sworn in as vice president, so she becomes president, and it fixes all of their problems. They're going to blame it on a Trump supporter. Shutting down social media helped them in the way that what they're doing right now is they're building a profile for the past. And people will say, well, why didn't we see anything about this on the internet? And they'll say, we blocked his account. Once it happens, so the Capitol protest where they had people storm the Capitol, what that set up is now what they're doing is Nobody's going to be in D.C. So there's no cameras on the ground. They can't pull this off if there's a bunch of people with cameras taking video while it's happening. If they manage that, because I believe that Biden's dying anyway, so he's willing to be the sacrificial lamb. So once they take him out and blame it on a Trump supporter, it invalidates the whole Trump movement. It makes it so people can't question the election anymore because of sympathy. It wins middle America, gives sympathy to the Democrats. They can do anything they want at that point. Initiates martial law, starts the gun grab. And on top of that, we can't attack Joe Biden's family anymore, and they can't investigate him anymore because of sympathy, because he's gone. And if he's dying anyway, he doesn't care. So we need to be talking about this to stop it from happening, because if we're talking about it, it will stop it from happening. But I am convinced that this is the plan, because it sews up every loose end and it gets them everything they want immediately. On Inauguration Day, it's all over. And it is over because they will start rounding us up if that happens.
Last night, will the president deliver on this, one of the last remaining promises? He has delivered in a big way. More than a foot-high stack of documents he has authorized released by the FBI and the Justice Department. These are the things that the FBI has tried to keep from the public for 4 years. They have amazing, big picture revelations. And let's start with, I think, the most important one. Christopher Steele, in his debriefings with the FBI after he was fired for leaking, he told the FBI, the reason I leaked is because I needed to help Hillary Clinton cover up her email problem. So I leaked to turn the attention to Donald Trump. The Russia collusion narrative was invented to protect Hillary Clinton from ongoing revelations about her email scandal. It was a political dirty trick.
Thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, in his opening remarks, the Democrat chair of the Rules Committee said that Republicans last week voted to overturn the results of an election. Guess who the first objector was on January 6, 2017? First objector, the Democrat chair of the Rules Committee. And guess which state he objected to? Alabama. The very first state called, Alabama. President Trump, I think, won Alabama by like 80 points. Actually, he won it by 30 points. They can object to Alabama in 2017, but tell us we can't object to Pennsylvania in 2021? Pennsylvania, where the state Supreme Court just unilaterally extended the election to Friday? Pennsylvania, where the Secretary of State unilaterally changed the rules, went around the legislature in unconstitutional fashion. Pennsylvania, where county clerks in some counties, and you can imagine which counties they were, let people fix their ballots against the law, cure their ballots, their mail-in ballots, direct violation of the law. And they tell us we tried to overturn the election. Guess who the second objector was in 2017? The individual managing the impeachment for the Democrats. Americans are tired of the double standard. They are so tired of it. Democrats object to more states in 2017 than Republicans did last week, but somehow we're wrong. Democrats can raise bail for rioters and looters this summer, but somehow when Republicans condemn all the violence this summer, the violence last week, somehow we're wrong. And Democrats can investigate the President of the United States, as Mr. Hoyer went through, try to impeach him, investigate him for 4 years, but will not look at an election that 80 million Americans, half the electorate, 80 million, Republicans and Democrats have their doubts about. I said this last night. I do not know where all this goes. And this is frightening for the country. We should defeat this rule, and we should defeat the impeachment resolution when it comes up.
Gentlemen's time's expired.
The time for you to leave is right now. We've been receiving emails after emails, calls and text messages from friends and family and people here in the community asking us, when was it time to leave? When should they get out of their house and go to another location? When should they give up their mortgage, stop paying their rent, and go and live with family? When should they seek safer areas, more rural ground, and places where they can have a garden and a guard dog? The time to do all of these things is right now. If you wait until things get worse, you risk normalizing what is happening. And through that time of normalizing the events around you, you will fall into a rut. And that will make it harder to get out when that time does come. Now, retreating isn't for everyone, but retreating is a guerrilla tactic, a guerrilla maneuver that allows you to better position yourself for the obstacles that you are going to face in the near future. And that's how you have to look at this financial crisis that we are all facing right now. It is one giant obstacle that we all have to adapt to and overcome. You might start to notice some undertones in our future broadcasts about larger events that are taking place in our world. But what we are each facing right now, the thing that is going to shape each one of our futures in the next 6 month period is going to be the financial obstacle and getting ahead for millions of people who are already $10,000 behind. That's where we stand right now. Millions of people across the country are $10,000 behind on their mortgage, on their rent, and the only reason that they're not being kicked out of their home today, not being evicted by sheriff's deputies today, or in some cases, SWAT personnel today, is because there's a moratorium that stops them from being evicted if they can prove that this financial crisis has a play in why they're unable to pay their rent or pay their mortgage. But that's not stopping the hundreds of thousands of repossession orders that are going into place. It's not stopping the large financial burden that each family is beginning to take on. During the Great Depression, the 1930s, you saw businesses that boomed. You saw areas where people never made more money. Those people got ahead quickly. They got ahead easily. For everyone else, the future was very difficult. And for some of them, they never got out, and they started a cycle, a pattern of destitution. And through that pattern, their families, their generations that were passed on, they still suffer in that cycle of destitution. I want you today to take note of where you're at. Do you have the ability to get ahead? Because those emails that we're receiving, those calls and those text messages are people who are ready to uproot their entire life. And it is not just our community. We are seeing people all over the country and all over the world who are looking to gain an advantage through temporary suffering. And it is going to be a temporary hardship, no matter what. Even just the act of packing a U-Haul and moving is a hardship. And for many people, especially those with disabilities or by themselves, they are going to have a harder time of it than a large family of able-bodied individuals. So what we can do together is help ease that burden, because that burden is going to come today or it's going to come in 2 weeks. It's going to come at some point in time. And you and your family need to be as ready as you can for it by being prepared to move when it's time. Even if right now you are in a great position, your mortgage is paid, your car note is paid, maybe you have neither. There may come a time in your near future when you are not in such a good position, and through that difficulty, through that burden, you find yourself and your family faced with a difficult decision. And that decision may drive you to go live with other family members just for the social security. It may drive you to abandon your home, abandon your vehicles. And that will be a hard time for everyone. But the time to do it, the time to make this plan is this day. We have family who we are talking to right now who are considering the exact same thing. We have friends who are packing their U-Hauls today. And I want you to make a plan to do that. Me and my wife, we moved back from Florida, where we were helping family, to here at our homestead in Alabama. Now, we suffered that burden because anytime you pack a U-Haul and move, it is a burden. We're minimalists. We live in a tiny home. It really doesn't matter. You take your belongings with you, especially if you're preparedness minded, and you would say that some people in the community have a higher burden than average because you have food stores, you have some personal security tools, you may have some gold and silver that you have to take into real consideration, or some electronics equipment. But you have to suffer through this burden before it gets too bad. It was time for us to come home, and it may be time for you to live with family. If you know people who are suffering this burden right now, let others know.
Is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. That all changes starting right here and right now.